I came locked and loaded for this chapter of Coleman on purpose. I'm talking about every aspect of church, from the good, the bad, and the ugly. Come with me as I explain the greatest and fulfilling moments of reasons I attend church and the frustrating or upsetting reasons that have made me second guess my decisions. It's time for real discussions on purpose for a purpose, starting now. Greetings, and welcome to another chapter of Coleman on Purpose. This is David J. Coleman, and I am for real ready to get into this chapter of Coleman on Purpose because it is right in my wheelhouse, and I can't wait to start talking to you about it. But before we begin, I do hope that your 2024 has been treating you very, very kindly. It's been treating me pretty good as well. The last time you spoke with me on this podcast, I was beginning my 21-day fast with my church. And now that fast is completed, I am very happy and excited that I was able to get through it, get a lot of, the reason why we do it, just get insight and to get clarity. And I believe my mind is very clear and I'm able to process a lot more things. And so hence why this chapter has come along. It's something that I wanted to talk about, but I kind of backed away from it because I'm always putting little spiritual things in a lot of my podcasts, but I kind of wanted it to be very balanced, but this is something that I wanted to tackle. And this chapter has a perfect title for it. It's a question, and it is, why do I still go to church? Now, this episode is probably the second episode that I've titled a question instead of a statement. And the last one I did was chapter 13. I think it was called What is a Real Man? And that was in my first season. And that is a very great, thought-provoking chapter that I did. And it was very intentional. And I made sure that I tackled it head on. And I'm going to tackle this one head on as well because I'm very passionate about it. And so when I talked about getting back to the intention of my podcast, this is part of the reason, or these are the topics that I love to talk about. I love shows that pose a question to people because it leaves people a bit curious and wondering where this episode will lead. And I think I should start now. I thought it would be interesting to discuss this because during my fast, I did realize that I am very spiritually connected to the church and the church's people and the ministry of the church. So those three things: the church, the people that are in the church, and the ministry of the church. I would probably say that I am more connected to the church's people, I believe, and the ministry part of it. The church, not so much, because if we look at like the standard definition of what a church is, like if we look in a dictionary or something, the church just said it's a building that people come and gather in to worship or to praise and different things like that. But many times people automatically connect the building of the church with the people that are inside the church. So when a lot of things are said about things that happen in the church, it's the building itself and just that place you go to with those people in it. And a lot of times they forget about the ministry aspect of it outside of the church as well. So I do look at it a little bit differently than other people, and I believe the people that are in the church are the church, and that's always been my definition of church. It's not just the building, it's the people in it make up the church as a whole. Now, saying that the church and them, it all goes together, the building, everything is done within the building and everything, and that's why people don't go. You have church people all around you. It doesn't matter where you go. There are people that are around you that are still connected to church, as much as they want to say they are apart from it. Some of their same beliefs, some of the same things that people that go to a building every Sunday believe, those people are still there as well, walking around in the earth. They might not go every single Sunday, but they're still there. They're still there. They are church people. And so a lot of times when something is generalized and just said the church, that is where I kind of pause, because I just have a different meaning or feeling for it. So while I was on the fast, I realized that the people that I work with, that I'm around, they always hear me relating things back to bettering myself for the Lord. And I say the Lord because that's part of like being a Christian. What a Christian is, that's the type of church I go to. I'm a Christian. So a lot of times I'm talking about these things, and for the longest time, saying I was Christian or talking about Christ, I didn't want to be overbearing on people. Like I saw it so many times, like growing up when, people, I mean, we used to go out onto the streets, pass out tracts, do different things. And sometimes if I go to like a concert or something, I see people out with the megaphones and the horns and everything like that and talking about it. And I never wanted to be that type of person that was overbearing or pushing my Christian beliefs onto anybody, and I still don't desire to push it on anyone. That's not my intention. That's not why I talk about it. It's really about myself. I relate it back to me and who I am, and that's a lot what ministry is about. And that's why you have so many preachers that are now going to more of a relatable type field. They're trying to talk about themselves and putting themselves in the shoes of others and stuff like that. It's not always been like that. And there are many churches that differ in the way that they teach or they preach and stuff like that. But I think that's why you're seeing so much of that, because that for real is like true ministry a lot of the times. One of the things that I do want to say is I truly believe in walking out what I believe, and whoever likes it or is drawn to it will connect and want to know more about what I am talking about. And this does not take away from people that are called to minister or to spread and edify the church body that's out here. I always have heard that ministry doesn't come just from the pulpit. That's something that I've always heard in the back of my mind. And I never really believed that. I always believed that the people with the most power or the most potential sat on front, were in the front, and they were in the front, and they were the ministers, and they were the pastors, and they were the ones that had the lead. But then you started to see the little branches that were all around the church or the church people that were ministering, even not just inside the building. Like they would go out and they would run into somebody, and then all of a sudden it turns into something, and somebody would say, I had a really low day, but such and such and such. And then they're able to tell their story. And that's part of what I believe the church is supposed to be doing. So that does not take away. I just want to make sure I say that does not take away people that are called to that and that are just want to spread the good news. They want to be, they want to spread the word of God. They want to do those things. There doesn't take away from what they feel called to do, but there are other people that are just those branches that are there that are putting some of those things out into the world around them. And that's not to say they don't do that either, but their main call is to help the people that are there, that are sitting there every single week, to lift their spirits so that they can go out and profess and get the stuff out that they need to, and not just shove it down people's throats, but just live it. That's really what it's all about. And so I was sorting through some of my old writings recently, and I found a certificate that I had of ministry. So if you didn't know, I probably mentioned it before on here. I am a minister, and I was ordained a minister in January of 2008. And this was before I was married. And I just recently found a DVD of my New Year's Eve sermon, the first sermon I ever preached. And I decided to take it out and look at it before I even, like, in the middle of me writing all these notes, I was like, let me go in and look at this. And the way that I watched this, no lie, I paced around my living room while I'm watching this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, look at this. I was like nervous, like watching myself preach my first sermon, bring up a Bible and everything to go. I was nervous. Like when I tell you, voice shaking, didn't really, like, it was a very first message, let's put it that way. And it was called Acquire the Fire. And I listened to it, and it was directed to a lot of young people, and just talking to people and saying that some people are not, if you're not too old to still operate in your gifts. And it had to do a lot with purpose. Without even calling it purpose back then, it still had to do with purpose. And years later, I'm still running around kind of with the same message when you think about it. So I don't know if that's just something that has always been on my heart, but it was just very interesting to sit there and watch. But it reminded me why I go to church, or what the connection that I've always had there. There's something that I want to instill to people that are within that realm of church. I believe that is part of like the ministry of me. And I don't even like to say ministry sometimes, because it's just like people get turned off sometimes, but there's nothing to be ashamed of. There's nothing to hold back on. But 15 years, I didn't mention nothing about me being a minister, church, nothing. I didn't want nobody to know. I was like, look, I'm just here. I'm living my life. I am just trying to go to heaven. And all of these things, just in my head. And then I had that awakening of the new meaning of what it was to have a relationship with Christ and everything like that. So it was a whole different flow for me after I had that experience, and it wasn't the same. I was no longer the same anymore when I started to think about those things. So now that I look at that, I can look back and realize that even though I was born into the church, I found my true connection in some of the hardest times of my life. From losing my entire memory, which I talk about in earlier chapters, to my divorce, which I talk about in earlier chapters, and through broken friendships, which I also talk about in previous chapters. And everything in between, I have known that it wasn't just getting me through. It was my source. The source was the Lord. That's what got me through. I wasn't just getting through on my own. I wasn't just making my way through or figuring it out on my own. I actually had a source to go to that would actually help me through some of the hardest times of my life, when I felt like nothing was going right and everything was going wrong. And that is where I find that's what people want to hear the most sometimes, about just your real life experience. And so I know that I connect with my source every day, but meeting people that are in the church is a bonus. And that is why I go to church, is because they continue to fill me with the right nutrients that make me into the person that I can be proud of walking around every day. It molds me into this person that I can see. And yes, I have, my mistakes. Yes, I mess up. Yes, I sin. Yes, all of these other things happen that are around me. But I know that I have a backing, or I know that I have people that are around sometimes that will help me through. And it's hard sometimes when you're looking for churches, or looking for that place where you belong, or trying to find the place that's going to continue to be there for you even when you fall. But it's important to have somebody that kind of thinks or is trying to go in the kind of the same direction as what you are. So that is very helpful. So that's another reason why I truly believe I'm connected to church. Now, let's hold on one second, because I done given you all these positives about why I go to church. But now, let me give you some of the negatives, and there's the pros, and then there's the cons. And there are some cons that I have realized as being, going to church, growing up in church, seeing everything, knowing everything, being in the middle of things. You realize some of these things. And so I want to make sure that I don't just give out those things of why I go to church, what are the great things, but some of the things that have disappointed me and almost turned me away from where I get my source, which I will never let happen. But I just think it's hard to watch, to sit back and watch something that you really care, like the people that you care about, not just the building. It's not about a building. It's just people that you care about that has some of the same things, that are not feeling the same way all the time about what they've seen and what they've heard, and the rejection and the different things that have come along with it. So I want to tackle that just a little bit right now as well. So let me start with this. So although my choice is to stay planted in the church, there's a flip side, because I've seen and heard it all. This road is not always easy, and it's not always daisies, and everyone is flawed that is within the church, just like everyone in the real world. We all have our flaws, including myself. And many of the flawed people have hurt other people along the way, along with myself, which I've said here on these chapters before. I've apologized for some of the flawed ways that I have may have believed, or different things. The church is a place where people come and find their refuge, or where they can sit down and they can feel safe, secure, like they can pour out their heart of a hard week or a hard life or something that has totally flipped their life around, or they're confused, or just different things. That's what the church's purpose really, really was, because that's what Jesus did. When people were out hurting, sick, whatever, he would just go out there and he would be in the midst and start to talk to people and do different things and have all those ways of speaking with people and edifying them and lifting them up when they were down, and turning them to him and the source of everything, and turning them to God. So it is, I can understand why people sometimes, looking from the outside looking in, cannot stand the hypocrisy that we see sometimes in church. You're saying you walk in love, but the love is a mixture of messy behavior. I'm just putting it out there plain and straight. You may say you walk in love, but there is messy behavior that is tied to the love walk, because you're flawed. And we have to realize that, because we can sit around and stand up and be walking around with this high horse or high hat, like we're just above because we have received Christ and all of these things. But in reality, people are needing you to come to them in love when you're explaining or trying to help them or do different things. That is what is needed a lot of times. Yes, there are times when a pastor or figure might have a rebuke or something like that, but sometimes they still can be flawed. That is the thing about it. We have to realize that they can still be flawed too. And I'm not going to get too riled up, because these are the parts that I get more fire about, because I have seen so many things from all angles all of the time. And this is what people see. But if you're not strong enough, you'll be like, look, I'm not even dealing with this over here, because this looks about just as a mess as what's going on out here. So I might as well not even be here. So as a Christian, I believe that it's my responsibility to walk and be like Christ to the best of my human capabilities, knowing that I'll never be perfect, but responding and speaking in love when I talk to others or communicate with others or respond to others. Let me tell you, now I had one of the darkest times I had with the church was during the pandemic. And I'm going to tell you why. I had kind of left the church that I'm currently back at now, and I went back to a larger church. And this was around the election year, and the coronavirus was rampant. There was nothing wrong with the larger church I went to and everything like that. It's just the community. It's not, you can build communities, but there is always a more personalized kind of thing where that's the kind of church that I want to be in. You can pick and choose what type of church you want to be in. You can be in a very, very large church and kind of blend and go break out into your sessions and kind of have surfacey stuff. But when it's real and you really want community and you want something a little bit more than that, there's a time to kind of pave a little path away from that, because I want to grow more and I want to be more and I want to do more, because I'm very connected to this ministry and the people that are in the church. So I don't want surfacey relationships. And it's hard to like dig in sometimes when there's so many differences and things are going on. So this is a time when I saw so many things. The church at that time was so heavily involved in politics. It was nauseating. Like literally nauseating to sit there and watch you. I kid you not. Here we are, supposed to be a place of refuge, set apart, and some were so involved with every candidate, every law, every rule, every human right. I'm not saying the church should not involve itself with like human rights and different things like that, but where you start to trust a system more than you trust the person who runs the entire ecosystem, I will always have a problem with that. I will always have a problem when we talk about trusting this God that we have placed here in our lives, and then we are involved with every other thing but looking to him for the direction. I'm going to always have a problem with that. The whole mask situation like that went on, like I didn't want to talk about it during this time because it was just so stupid. And I was just like, I mean, you had people prophesying who the next president was going to be. You had people saying not to, it was just a whole bunch of stuff where everybody has the right to make their own decision on what they're going to do. Yes, we can pray over. Yes, we can do all these things, but we are so wrapped up in it that we're not letting God take control of the situation. We want to be in control. This is what I look at when I look at Christianity, is really truly putting everything in God's hands. Yes, we have a responsibility. Yes, we can vote. Yes, we can do all of those other things. I was honestly just at that time, I was like getting really out of character. I was like, I'm pushing for who I want to be in office then. If y'all gonna be pushing it. So it was getting me out of the character of what I even like to. I just like to be like, look, these are the choices, these are the reasons why. When I'm looking at people, I'm looking at their character. If I'm talking about either president or just different situations that are going on, I'm looking at the character, where the topic is coming from, what are the roots of it, what is the history, what are ways that this point towards Christ, what are the things that, that's what I'm looking at when I'm either making decisions or trying to vote for somebody or do different things. And so I go by what spirit walks with the love of Christ. It's not, and not just in one or two areas. Let me make sure I point that out real quick, because we like to pick and choose what area means more or what is this or that. We're looking at a whole picture. I look at the whole picture. It is not just one simple thing. So your actions, everything plays a part in my decision making, because if you did not look like Christ when you did that, that means you're not going to look like Christ again when something else happens. Like, I'm just talking about candidates or anybody that we're putting, like if we're talking about office or anything like that, that's what I'm referring to. But I'm also referring to some of the main problems that are going on in the world. There are things that we will place on top of something and we'll be like, this is that, or this is the other. But that's never how Jesus looked at everything. So there is a saying, we are in the world, but not of the world. That is like a whole church thing that we say a lot of times. And during 2020, there were very few and far between people who actually believed this, including myself, because I was, like I said, I was getting mad. I was running around. It was like monkey see, monkey do all the time. So I did not realize that it is always a systematic thing. It's like the system wants us to be in this divided space at times, and we fall into those traps every single time. This is the next go around. I hope it doesn't happen as well. But January 6th happened, and some of the main churches didn't talk about nothing. I feel like they dropped the ball. The people that I'm talking about, churches, the people in the church itself. I mean, you had people that were in need over here in certain instances that needed stuff, and all this stuff was going on. High figure Christian people. And this went down, and they could have been either praying or saying this is wrong, but we were talking about this is liberty, this is justice, this is what, if we lose our, it was just very, it was like, it was way, way far out there. And it was like almost encouraging unlawfulness in a way. And it was like, it's good that they did that. And no, it was not good that they did that. And I felt like many churches on many topics went mute on the mistreatment of blacks during this period, as well as some of the outlandish stuff that even when it's too far as to say, the mistreatment of blacks was conspiracy and these were setups to get us riled up and all of these things. But it was so silly to me in ways. And I was just like, regardless of if it was or it's wrong, anything we see is wrong. And that's the thing. We got messed up so much with our reality. Things that we would normally see as crazy or outlandish, we're so used to seeing them that we don't take it for a grain of salt, but it is mistreatment and it is wrong. Anybody, any human being, that is the way that Jesus, any human being mistreated is wrong. And we have to start saying that stuff and not sitting in the back and picking and choosing what we want to get riled up and speak out about. And that is for real, y'all. And the church's people should be one of the examples that leads with love during these times. To be arguing back and forth on platforms about who's holier or what someone else is doing in someone else's church, unless you go to that church or are sitting in that pew and you're not either a minister or God has told you to say something, then I need you to maybe just sit back and worry about what's going on in the church that you attend. That's for all church folks. Like that's my feeling. That is my sentiment. That's why I've even gone as far. I was telling a friend the other day, I don't even repost when I start seeing negative things in the church anymore. I am not reposting foolishness or commenting on foolishness anymore because there's so much that's going on right now. Why would I want to spread something around about something or a place that I go to get my healing or go and get my help? Why would I want to make that? The media does a great enough job doing that already. I don't need to add to that. What am I doing? What am I trying to prove? What am I trying to show? Why am I arguing about this? I don't have time for that. I have too much to do on my own than to be worried about someone else's church or some other foolishness that they know is foolishness, but it's probably used just so they can get their name out there more so their church can be big. Church was not even about being the biggest church. So those are the intentional things like, no, yes, you're saving souls, you're doing things for the church, but it wasn't a race. This is not a race to be the best church in the world. It's a race for people to know how to be happy, how to live, how to really fully live the best of their lives. If they find that comfort and peace within the Christian community or the church, then we should be inviting and welcoming to that. So I really want to say this lastly. I always used to say this phrase, holier than thou. And we used to joke about it all the time. I've learned as Christians, just because I made the choice to belong to Christ, I do not have the right to walk around and berate people that might not have made the same decision as me. Why are we having to put down others that haven't made it to this point in their journey or have chosen another path? Why are we having to put them down for what they have chosen at this time? Of course, I would love if it could just if they could just feel everything that I feel when I walk with Christ, or feel when I talk to the Lord, or have seen some things and felt miraculous moves that he's made in my life. But I believe that the Lord gives choices. And if a person is led to the Lord just under the guise that if they don't get on board, the hell is waiting for them, what relationship is that building with a person that they're supposed to love, adore, and cherish? Like, yes, that may happen over time. Yes, that's the way it was used a lot of times in the back. It was like, hell, hell, hell. And that got people saved. And over time, their journey changed. But what did they go through to get to that point? What types of hell, or some people have not even been around to live to see it because they've put themselves down so much that they don't even feel like they are even worthy enough to be in the mix with anybody that's Christian. Like, what is that saying about your walk, or what is that saying about what you really hold or value? That is the point that I'm really trying to make, because even though I'm talking about why are the reasons I go to church, I want to be involved in church because that is my peace. That is part of my joy. Like, I know I can find ways to make myself happy and do different things, but I find a centering there. There is such a centering that I do find when I am in church, and not just a building, just around people that are talking about some of the things that I've always known, even talking about the hard topics. These little negative topics that I've talked about, when I can sit down and talk to them about that and they don't get bent out of shape or feel like they have to back every single thing up with us, just think about Jesus. That's what I talk about. When I'm talking about being a Christian, I'm talking about Jesus. So I'm grateful that over time, that what used to be a ritual for me, just going to church, just to do it as a ritual, has now become a love for me that can't be tainted by anybody. Even when people or things change, I know I have a constant connection with someone higher than all the natural things that I see here sometimes. And that's what keeps me walking in my real truth. That's what keeps me walking in that real truth of my faith. And even as I was fasting over this time, I realized that being ashamed of people knowing that I go to church or that I'm heavily connected to Christ is not a bad thing. It's part of who I am. And as I'm accepting and loving others, I hope that they feel the same love and they extend that same love to me and my makeup. Just like I'm extending that love and makeup to them, I hope that they can extend that same love to me as well. That's what I try to show. So, all in all, why do I go to church? This is what I wrote down in my final notes. Church connects me with other people who prayerfully are attempting to bring life into a world that needs the light of my Father to move and shine on the darkest and most hopeless situations. This is why I live my life with purpose. There are so many different functions of people in and connected to the church that the work is not just in the dictionary definition of the building. We are supposed to spread our light to every single room we enter and to every single place we travel to. There should always be a difference in the way we, the people in the church, look to the world around us. And not no fake or phony looks, but real, authentic, genuine, heartfelt care and commitment to seeing people truly know the mission and heart of Christ. And this was his mission, one of the main ones that he told people when they were talking about one of the main commandments in the Bible. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. Two words that I hear twice in there. Love, love, love. I hear one specific word, love, when I hear that. And my prayer every single day, like, I just hope that is exuded through my podcast, through the people that I meet, to the people that I run into. I pray that they see love through me every single day I walk this planet. One thing people can never take away from me or change after all these years is how I love. And I have been hurt, done all the different things. Love. That is what I want them to know and see. The love of Christ exude from me everywhere I go. Love is a extremely powerful thing that we cannot waste or lose or take for granted. And I'm going to leave it at that on this podcast. I know we went really long on this Coleman on Purpose because this is like my wheelhouse. I can go. I have long conversations about this stuff every day. But if you want to continue the conversation, make sure you come and follow me on Instagram at DeluxeDave, DeluxeDave. I'm also on TikTok. You can follow me there. I have a Coleman on Purpose site on TikTok where you can follow it. It's Coleman on Purpose. That's all you type in to find it on TikTok to continue this conversation. Or you can find me on all other social media platforms under David J. Coleman. It's cool. You can reach out to me there. I would love that and I would appreciate that. I want to thank you once again for joining me for this edition of Coleman on Purpose. Please do remember that you are unique, you are loved, and you are created for greatness. Until next time, holla holla.